we'll do some stuff in a little bit. Cool, right, so we're going to do a little bit of setup like we did before, get some pilot hose to drill, a little bit of a backer. The backer today is going to be good old-fashioned MDF. Now, we're not cutting this. MDF is notorious for being a bit bad for you, and you've got to wear masks on it. So this stuff is merely going to get sprayed black, and it's going to form the backer for the image we're making. So we're just going to go over to the spray bench, give this a quick lick, and then we'll be back on the saw. So the original plan today was to spray this using satin black car stuff, but for some inexplicable reason this one's choked up, so it's dead in the water. So we're going to have to raid the wood turning supplies. We're going to use chestnut ebonizing lacquer. We don't need a huge amount of this. It's good stuff. It's a bit expensive for what we're about to do, since most of this won't be seen through the main image. But we'll figure this out on the next trip to Halfords. So we'll give this a little bit of a blast. Nothing too heavy. We'll need this in a little while, but not straight away. And then we're going to get on and drill our pilot holes. So that, I think, a little bit up the side, should be that. And still plenty of ebonizing lacquer left. Cool. So I'm just going to go to the scroll bench, and we'll start getting these pilot holes and start getting this up on the saw. So I've already stuck the pattern down again. This is using that A4 laser labels printed out, and the image is created on multiple sheets using Microsoft Excel. Now this particular image is pretty good. There doesn't really need to be drilled any pilot holes, but they do make things a little simpler. We kind of have to cut around this guy to sort of cut him loose, but the first cut I'll make will be along this way. Looking at it, I'm probably not going to make a pilot hole on this. I'm just going to start the cut from the edge, come right along his neck, and go straight through out the other end, and then we'll start bringing this together. The image is in two parts, remember. This will be the black, all these grey areas will be the black coming from the back, and all of these pieces will be something else. But we'll get these pilot holes in. We'll get these pilot holes in for later on. So we'll put a couple in his eyes, all of the studs on his chest will all need to be fed through later. I think that's us. I think that's us. So on the back we can see the holes. We'll give the holes a little bit of a wiggle. Make sure they're a little easier to access when we come to use them. It's also pretty good if you've got one to take a Sharpie or a marker pen and just give yourself a fighting chance and mark them up on the saw. Sorry, mark them up on the back. So we're going to make a start on this. We're going to bring this guy in. So we're going to go over the saw and we start cutting from the left through to the right. Or from the right through to the left, depending on which way you guys see it. This is 3mm birch ply. Very light, very thin, really to try and get the effect that we're looking for. And as we're going through this particular cut, I'm having to stand quite far back because this is a flat blade. So I'm just taking it a little easy as I'm coming around from all that far side. The last thing I want to do is go and cut a big hole. Oops, like there. So we're just going to make a design change straight away. So we'll add another little bump. That's probably a good thing. Any comments? Cool, so we're now in two parts, which makes this a little easier to handle. So here, if we go back over to scroll bench a second, we're just going to make a minor adjustment to this guy. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut out the head, because we need this piece to be ready fairly early on, because we need to change the color of this top piece. So we'll start cutting. Any comments? David, I can honestly say that the upgrading the saw changes how much enjoyment you can get out of it. Some of the lower end saws you can do amazing things with, but you become less worried by the saw. You stop thinking about the saw. You start worrying about what am I going to make with it? How do I want it to look? You spend less time working around limitations of the saw. You just kind of get on and do it. Anyone seeing any buffering at their end? Okay. So we've cut out if we go back to the scroll bench, we've cut out his head, we've kind of got his body. Yeah, we're kind of here with the design so far. But what we're going to do now is we're going to peel off this backer. Yeah, so we saw the same thing a little bit on Nick's feed last night. It was quite quite badly buffering. It might be that YouTube. So we're having a bit of problems with buffering. Not seeing it here though. Um, let me know, folks, if you're seeing any issues out in the chat. No, not yet. I'm still peeling. Okay, one last little bit to cut in this bottom corner. I nearly forgot. It doesn't make that much of a difference, but it adds to the whole image effect. Cool. So we'll keep him to one side. Put me back on the bench, please. Put me back on the bench. Yeah. Yes. Yes. So what you guys can't hear is I've got my other half in my ear saying, "Going back to the bench again?" With some exclamation in her voice. So what we're going to do, folks, is we're just going to give this surface a little rub down. I've peeled the tape off. Occasionally leaves it a little furry. Nothing too much to worry about. But you can already see the Iron Giant's head in there. So what we're quickly going to do, we're going over to the spray bench. We're going to move our drying backdrop. And I'm going to pop down the Iron Giant's head himself here, the background. Now, that background is pretty cool. I quite like it the way it is. The wood effect. We're on the scroll bench, my darling. And from the scroll bench, I have come to the spray bench. You need to listen, my dear. Sorry. There we are. So I'm over here on the scroll bench. Cooey. What's this? Yeah, the sprays. This camera suffers from getting sprayed on top of all the time, so it gets a little bit rough. It gets some rough treatment, I think would be the phrase. So it's a cheap one. So we're going to spray this guy off a bit orange. We'll give him a bit of a hit around the edge. The orange here is quite fluorescent. I don't know if you guys can pick that up in the camera. It'll probably need a couple of hits. We'll see it a bit better. So yeah, so Huey, the camera that's over here is a bit, well, it gets a kicking from all the spray paint. The fact it works at all impresses me. Alright, so we've got a little bit of the orange in there right now. And hopefully the wood grain will come through a little bit and give us the impression of a sky behind them. Yeah, so if we come back to the scroll saw. And there was me praising the camera because it still worked, and it seems it's coming apart at the seams. I don't know. One of those cheap cameras that you just think maybe just a little bit too cheap, and is dying at the hands of all that spray paint. Folks, my earworm keeps telling me for her view, for her watching, she's seen buffering. Is anyone else seeing anything wrong in the chat? Hi, Steve. Oh, that went flying onto the floor. I'll just pick that up. We're going to cut round his head a bit more. So you can probably already see that this particular make is going to be quite quick. You know, if we're already doing some colouring. So I've been debating whether or not to paint or stain the Iron Giant itself. Whether to paint him brown or copper, or whether to stain him kind of orangey brown to try and get that slightly rusty effect that he appears to have in the movie. What do you guys think? So there's a number of Steves in the chat. I wonder what the collective noun is for a collection of Steves. So getting down into some of the parts now, which is good. Like I say, expect today's to be quite quick. Mm-hmm. What about an Austin of Steves? How does that work? After Steve Austin, the $6 million man, and of course the wrestler. How does that work? You could probably walk around Maker Central and say, "Have you seen Steve?" And someone will always say, "Yeah, he's over there." Won't necessarily be the Steve you're looking for, but you'll get a Steve. Oh, here, it's the $6 million man, Steve. I can't make the noise. I remember it, but I can't make the noise. It's kind of that, I don't know, slow motion kind of thing. I remember owning a $6 million man, getting a gift of a $6 million man as a child. That was quite unique. Seem to remember he had a magic eye. That's Steve Tastic, my word. Mr. Wayne, how are you? Yes. Didn't he come with? Didn't he come with a V8 engine, Huey, and a button on his back he pushed to make his arm work? Yeah, yeah. Or am I confusing him with something else? Or am I confusing him with something else? Oh, good. Hmm? Cool. So we're coming up to the, you can say we're pretty much going to have the head cut ready. And we'll start seeing how we're getting on with the backer in a minute. It needed a little bit more time to tack off by the looks of it. He had a kind of red-orange jumpsuit, I seem to recall. My lovely wife is trying to pronounce penitentiary, and she's making an awesome, awesome, awesome job of getting it wrong. I feel that, however, she's beating herself up now, but she does speak 8 languages, of which English is only one. I have tried at some level to get her to teach her another language, which is foul language. I feel I'm being quite successful because she's now swearing in my ear. Jaffa Tango, what? Yeah. Actually, we're short of Jaffa cakes today. Our normal shopping trip had to be cancelled since the car park we like to use is closed, and we'll have to figure out how we can do that particular cheap run another way. So she's just tried to read what you've just typed before for penitentiary, typed again for penitentiary. I'm trying my level best here not to laugh because it is in public. I feel I'll suffer for this entire conversation later. Okay, so we've got a collection of bits starting to form up, which is good. So we're going to do his eyes, I think, now. Um, Again, you can see it makes it easy to find the dots by doing the black marker on the back. Dots, holes, dots, holes, holes, dots, dotty holes, whatever. Because the eyes are on a larger piece, cut the eyes out first. It's really important if you're doing a face that you get the eyes as right as you can, since we're kind of wired as people. Hi Anna. We're doing the eyes. People get quite pay attention. They find defects or things they don't like about the eyes really early on when they're looking at a picture. We're all good, sir. We're all loaded with provisions. However, I'm quite confident that at the earliest opportunity, I'll have ate through them all. Hmm. Um, but we're not. Cool. You need a little bit of a cleaning up. Let's do the other eye before we come back and do the inside. We'll come back and do that other. We'll do the other. Cut out the other eye first. Again, the reason for doing them this way is it gives you a larger piece to cut from, so it's easier to control. We're gonna go and get the. When I finish this eye, we'll go and see how we're doing with our stuff from the spray bench. And with any luck, we'll be able to bring it over, and we'll start to see the image forming up. A little bit of a neck there we're going to have to try and cut out later. Cool. Right. 1 minute. I'm going to get stuff. Backer. So the backer's flashed off. If we go back to the scroll bench a moment, big piece for later. Little piecey starting to come out. So here is the backer in place. And this, you can start to see him sort of forming up in this now, if that makes sense, guys. Yeah. Cool. So we have the neck piece down here, and we're starting to see the eyes coming to the fore. We'll obviously take these guys out of their backing in a little while. We have a few pieces obviously from down the sides, which we've kind of got to get in place. And yeah, watch this space. This piece goes up here from memory. So you're starting to see our guy coming to life. Now I'm missing a tiny piece. What did I do with it? Oh, it'll be here somewhere. We'll find it in a minute. We'll find it in a minute. It'll ickle tiny piece. So yeah, we're going to cut out the rest of the eyes now. Back on the scroll saw. On the finished piece, these will get a little bit of sanding to make sure they're the right shape. For the purposes of what we're doing for today, we'll get them as close as we can. I hate it crossing the boundary between the sheets for the pattern. Getting it dead on is always one of those nerve-wracking moments where you go, I can make such a bum of this. I think I don't need to look on the underside to find that hole. Let's get this in there. Steve, do you mean Iron Man or the Iron Giant? Iron Man being red guy, flies in the sky. Iron Giant being large robot, falls from the sky. Yeah, it's a very cool story. I remember it from when I was a kid from the original book, and the movie was pretty cool too. It's from a time when they didn't try to modernize the book too much. Okay, so we've got his head done, wobbling the camera. And if we go back to the scroll bench just a moment, we can start to see him starting to come together a little bit. Not quite there, but we're kind of getting there, folks. We're kind of getting there. Cool. Back to doing some more cutting, and then we'll get on with doing his chest plate. Like I say, I think we'll get quite far today. Not necessarily get to do the resin infill, but we'll definitely get the colouring done inside the slot. So if I get my bearings right, this guy is kind of here. Actually, I think these are the wrong way round, but we'll get them in a minute. But it's a bit like it's Vin Diesel's big break. I mean, Iron Giant was what led to him becoming Groot. If we want to just quickly flick over to the scroll bench, you can start to see our guy really starting to form up. We've got obviously his chest panel to do, and then we've got a peel out to do for the thing. You know, that guy needs to sit a little bit there. We can make him look to one side if we want. You know, I don't know. We'll see what it looks like when we get to that. Okay, back on the saw to do this. Cut this guy up into some pieces that are a little bit more manageable. Yes, I always make all my own patterns. Always. I don't think anyone quite does them this way. Stocked up on blades, thankfully. After, let me just get this one the right way around. Slot through the saw. Yeah, you can pick up the patterns from, if there's one you like, send me an email, or reach out to me on Messenger. If you're in Team Scrollsaw chat group, the patterns are published there, and there's the odd one or two on the Maple Tree Studios page too. Now when you change to the Pegasus blade, the blade is much sharper than when you come in again, and it really is tremendously aggressive. I don't know if you can hear that, and if you are not careful, it'll bite and chew into the wood like it did earlier on. So we've cut this into two pieces. Cut it into two pieces. My wife is telling me I have to be careful because she's paranoid I'm going to cut myself, but you can't really cut yourself on a scroll saw. You've got to be special. You have to be a superstar like Carl Jacobson to cut yourself in a scroll saw. Cool. Okay, so we're going to cut out what is really supposed to be a rivet, or the shadow of a rivet. And we'll get this. Again, this guy is really, really aggressive, so a little bit. Just feed it to the edge of the blade. Don't try to force it, because it'll just eat through this 3mm like it isn't even there. And then when the blade gets a little duller, you've got to do a little bit more. Scroll saw anchor, Huey? Oh yeah, yeah. Cool. Rivet done. Back out. You can see how much, if you're using something like the EX21 series, there's a lot less faff to changing blades. But if you do have a more traditional saw, or preloading the blades into the holder helps. Means you don't have to fiddle with both ends, so get a few more holders. And you can preload them, so you're only ever changing one side whenever you get a breakage. But there are folks out there who can change the blade in one of the traditional pinless mounts within like 8 or 9 seconds. It's like a pit stop. So let me do that in a live one time. Ah, okay. First scroll saw I owned, I used to use it for doing joints. I used to use it for doing joints and woodwork. That was what I'd use the scroll saw first to begin with. And then I got a chance to use a better scroll saw than the one I had, which isn't this one. And it made such a difference. So we're starting to get some of his chests together. We'll come back to that in a minute and we'll have a look at where we're at. As I said, I think we'll go all the way to colouring today without it taking too long. Cool, let's put that piece down there. I think that's another little bit. Yep, we have a dot to find though. Ah, there he is. Found him. Found him, knew it was there. Right, so big, long, straight. Cool. Get this one done now. Mm-hmm. Good, good machine. Mm-hmm. For a bit, especially if you're trying to use a scroll blade on spiral blade. 3 rivets and 1 long run, and we're finished the cut, and we're on to colouring and layup. Um, The work zone saw, if memory serves, was made by, I'm going to pronounce the name wrong here, but Bueller. Although it says work zone on it, Aldi get Earl Bueller, which is a good brand um, to make a lot of their tools, if I remember rightly. I think Lidl, the brand they have is Parkside, which I think is Ryobi. So it's not a bad machine. Its tensioning is at the back, if memory serves, which makes it so it enjoys far less vibration at the head. And of course, the first thing you do is take the guard off and all that good stuff to cut down the amount of vibration. Yeah, that's the name. I've never decided how to pronounce it. What we need now is a Wayne the Woodturner who lived in Germany for a while. He'll be able to nail that first tip. Or Anna. Maybe Anna could help us if she's still in the chat. Cool. I put my teeth in. One long last cut along the bottom edge. And then we're going over to the colouring bench and we'll try and get some wood staining done. Mm-hmm. Cool. All right. So we're kind of just about there. If we go to the layup bench, if we go to the scroll bench, Just a moment. We've kind of got this sort of shape forming up. Okay, so we're going to go over to the. We're going to pause for a moment. So we're going to have a quick pause over at the PC, just for a moment while I have a cup of tea, and then we'll get over to the. We'll get over to the Erbauer. Ah, right. So quick cup of tea, and then we'll go over to the colouring bench. So just remind everyone what it is what the pan should. The colouring bench. I'll just bring our piece over. I'll just bring our piece over. So what we're going to do, is we'll take this guy away, and we'll, okay, so let's just fake this for a moment while we're getting organized. So it's going to look a bit like, that, guys. So, got a bit to do yet, but you can kind of see it. So we've still got the original sort of marks and apply here. I'll make my mind up as I get to the end whether I keep them as sky effects or whether we go for much more of a few more coats of orange to really bring out that effect. But you can just make it out through it. Now, what we're about to do is either gorgeously therapeutic or mind-numbingly tedious. No, not really. This is quite quick and is a bit of fun. This is the equivalent of the money shot, I guess, in wood turning in some respects. But we've got to decide what we're going to do for the colouring on this. So, he's quite dark. He's quite dark. So, I need to make my mind up. So, he's either brown, or he's Indian rosewood, maybe. Or he could be, let me think. Not quite flame, but perhaps more of an earthy color, perhaps. Maybe an earthy color. Maybe an earthy color such as earth, perhaps. Or maybe flame. Not sure. Don't want to paint him. So let's get a bit of scrap from the cup, and we'll see how this goes. So we've got a bit of scrap, and we'll see what we get from this. So the rosewood is currently, in my mind, is one I know I'm going to get if I put it on. But let's see. Can you guys see me on this test piece over here? So flame will come out a bit like that. So it's a bit too red for my taste. It's kind of coming out of so then compared to the rest of the orange, it's got a reddy feel, I feel. We're going to try with more of an earthy color. Yeah, so we're going to try, this is intrinsic, this is earthy. And that's not bad. Not bad. It's not bad. It's not bad, perhaps. Not bad. Let's do a little dab of the oh heck, what's the name? Um, so we've got a. So this is, if I remember rightly, let me just think of who made this stuff. You know. So that's a kind of brown stain from whose name escapes me. It'll come back to me in a second. But I've had it around for ages. Right now, Earth is winning, but my suspicion is we might go with Indian rosewood. So we're going to do rosewood. So first pass with rosewoods comes out like this. So of the 3 or 4 we get, could do a touch up on the darker color first. I think we'll start with the earth. Start with the earth and then come in a bit more. I feel now we know that these guys are going to be white because they're the eyes, but everything else is colored. So like I say, from my perspective, I don't use all this 8 million tons of tape for doing a one-off. If I was doing a stack cut, I'd be covering this with packing tape and all sorts on the other side. But for the purposes of what we're doing, which is really a one-off, it's kind of not worth it. People, the laser label provides some lubrication to the blade. And we're kind of getting into a scenario that looks a little bit kind of like this, perhaps. There's his chest. Plates, kind of. That's in the corner. He's there. Nice simple pattern, and then we'll get some stain on this guy in a minute. We'll peel off the first parts of his chest and we'll do it. Worst case scenario, if we don't like the colour at the end, can always spray paint it. Can always spray paint it cast bronze if push comes to shove. Not my first choice though, but it's quite coaty, quite thick. You kind of lose the wood grain a little bit. So that one's a little bit rough in the back, a little bit rough in the cup, so we'll just clean that off. Okay, so we're sort of starting to get this sort of feel from this. We bring him over and in a bit. There we go. How that? My wife is saying, is that stained already in my ear? And the answer would be no. I haven't got that far yet. I'm just making sure I've got a bunch of it peeled off till we're ready to go. So, a little guy here who is absolutely determined. He wants to be on the floor. This is the second time he's made his bid for freedom, and the second time he's been beaten. So he goes in somewhere about there. Right, bit of staining. Bit of staining, I feel. Spot of gloves, anyone? Oh. We'll do the Iron Giant's face in a minute, but we'll get this first part. So what did I say? Start with Earth. Yeah. Yeah. We'll do that in a bit more detail next time. But yeah. The great thing about the birch ply is it has quite a good veneer on the top and it takes stain quite well. What do we think, folks? What do we? Yeah, we'll give it a go. We'll do a little test in a minute. We'll start with the base coat, and we'll see where it goes after this. Okay, first pass. Glove off. Glove off to do the next peel. The head. My wife just said, "What's next?" The head is what's next. Get ahead. He's muttering. Sooner or later, you're going to have to just let people hear you speaking in the live. You know that, right? Yes. Mhm. This is where this one is being awkward. There we go. And that one nail is just not enough to get underneath. There we go. Pure clear. Cool. Big peel off the face. We're going to. So this would be for the final part of this where I glue it down. I'll probably do off camera because it just takes a little bit of care and it gives you a chance to smooth things off and get things just the way you want them. This is a piece of dowel with a bit of sandpaper stuck to it. It's a great way to start rounding off parts that you're not happy with. So these are all kind of getting down to the last little bit. We'll give them a dust out in a minute before we do a final, before we do a kind of beauty shot for the end. But I don't know, that doesn't look too bad, that brown from here. It's kind of dried out quite well, but it definitely needs another something on it. It's not quite right, I think. Not quite there. Oops, wrong one. Get a bit of where's my glove go? Oh, to hell with it. Won't get another one. I rolled the. My wife's just said, what's wrong? I've rolled the glove out the wrong way, so I can't put it back on without fighting with it. Done that. Got another one. Got another one. Hmm? So in the final, when I do the final layup on this, I'll go around the inside of the eyes and things to make sure we've got the whole thing lovely and pretty. But for the moment, we're kind of getting there. Bit of dab staining on this. Do the whole thing at the one time here. He goes up here. Looks a bit like that. a bit of tape on that. Cool. What do we think? Nice, easy pattern. Quick to deliver. I wonder if this guy is supposed to be around here, and this guy is supposed to be here. I think. Don't know, we'll have to check before I do the final layup. Sort of where we're heading on this, guys. Well, you turn round, you little bugger. Cool. Don't try to do that with your gloves on. So tell me what comments are in the chat. Final piece from the point of view of the body or the staining, which is, I say, there's a few bits I'll need to go back over before I glue it down. But we won't do that on the live. But we'll pick it up offline. Okay. Let's get some lids on things before they go flying. Okay, last two pieces, and then we'll give this a blow down, and we'll get to the end of the live. Like I say, a little bit to do from the point of view of final finish before it gets lacquered. Lots of little bits of dust and dirt that need to be cleaned away. Just from the point of view of bits of sawdust and debris. I don't know if you can see in the camera, but you occasionally get very slight, very slight sort of fuzzies. That's what I'm doing when I polish this off. You get a look at them and you give it a, just to clear them off. If there's something there you don't like the look of, let's put our. So this is just the birch itself, no colouring, nothing done to it. Kind of looks a little bit like this guy. If we do that framing again, just for the end piece, you wind up with an effect that looks a bit like that. Yeah, a little bit over here. Yeah, I reckon that. Cause say I've got a little bit of touch up to do. There's a load of bits of debris in there. We're getting them cleaned up, but that's pretty much about it, I think. What do we think? All right, everyone. Have a great Sunday. Have a great week. Be safe. I'll catch up with you all again same time next Sunday, where I think we're doing So Genius, which is a pop art Einstein. Should be quite fun. Catch up with you guys then. Bye!